Thank you very much. It's an honor for me to be here tonight and to have served since 2004 as a member of the My Good Deed National Advisory Board. Before we begin, please join me in observing a brief moment of silence in remembrance of those who we pay tribute to tonight, to those who were lost on 9/11, to those we have lost since then to the side effects of the rescue and recovery effort, and to the many brave men and women who have died in the field of battle in defense of freedom and our nation. Thank you. September 11, 2001, sadly, will forever be one of those dates in history. I'm talking about a date where people can tell you exactly where they were, what they were doing when they first heard the news. Dates like December 7th, 1941, the attack on Pearl Harbor, November 22nd, 1963, the assassination of John F. Kennedy, and now September 11th, 2001. The attack on our mainland by 19 suicidal terrorists. 9/11. Yet people say that we are forgetting that date, that we're forgetting 9/11. And in many ways that is true. Part of it is human nature. We all move on. It's healthy to do so, but another part of it is emotional. And for 9/11 in particular, it's very hard to cope with the memories. For many of you in this room, it's probably hard for you to even be here. Lee Ielpi and Jennifer Adams, who founded and run the wonderful Wtc Tribute Center across from Ground Zero here in New York, know that well. It is a relatively small exhibit that they've put together, a beautiful collection of personal stories, history, and artifacts, but it is so very large in the impact it has on its visitors. Lee and Jennifer will tell you that people are sometimes afraid to come in or hesitant to turn a corner once inside. It brings back terribly difficult memories that shake us to the core, which is why we are all here tonight, to create and commemorate a forward-looking way for the nation to deal with these emotions and to remember 9/11 and the people whose lives were lost and forever changed by it. I'm very honored to say that after a 7-year effort led by My Good Deed and the 9/11 community, September 11th permanently becomes a national day of service and remembrance today. Now, people have asked, why a day of service and remembrance? I think many of you already know the answer to that question. You experienced it in your own lives, just as Cindy McGinty did. While we can never forget the horrific tragedy of that day, we must remember that 9/11 was also about people pulling together to help one another. We've heard about many of these stories, and there are many that we'll never know about. The hundreds of first responders who raced to the scene and charged into the towers without regard to their own safety. The passengers of Flight 93 who refused to accept their fate and saved the lives of so many others. Those in the Pentagon who emerged from the fire with colleagues on their arms, and those on the hijacked planes who called their loved ones and gave comfort to one another. A lot of people didn't wake up that morning planning to be heroes. But that's exactly what they became. They put themselves at risk and in many cases gave up their lives to protect others that they didn't even know. The stories are endless, and they continue on to this very day. All told, more than 35,000 people spontaneously arrived on the scenes of those tragic events, offering to do whatever they could. And all of America and the world came together in a remarkable sense of unity and compassion. A dear friend of mine, retired firefighter and former Marine John Vigiano, who lost both his sons at Ground Zero and spent days looking for them in the rubble, said to me once, "This reinforces my feelings about how more good came out of 9/11 than evil." I recall leaving the site every night between 2300 and 2400 hours, and the streets were lined with people giving water and whatever they could to anyone who needed it. When we returned in the morning, usually about 06:30, many of the streets were still crowded with people helping. There is a healing power in service to others in a time of need. Many lives were changed that day, and many were called to action. For me personally, this terrible tragedy opened my eyes to how vulnerable we can be, and also to how much our country needs all of us to give back something so that we might remain strong. From that point on, I was thrust into a level of service and volunteerism I had never known or thought about. That service was a way to heal the terrible pain I felt at what had happened to this nation I love and to so many of my fellow countrymen and women. The words of JFK ring so true today. Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. I would suggest that by doing a good deed for your neighbor or a stranger on a day of service and remembrance, we do give back to our country. And by doing that, and by passing that spirit of giving onto our children and our grandchildren, we help keep her strong. Imagine Osama bin Laden holed up in a dirty cave in the middle of nowhere. He would like nothing better than for America to remember only the lasting images of death and destruction, to be paralyzed with fear, and to pass that fear on to our children and to their children and to the next generation after that. I'm sure he would love for America to forget about all the bravery and compassion that resulted from the attacks. Well, thanks to you, that's not going to happen. We are never going to forget what happened on that day and the days that followed, when Americans came together in common purpose to support one another. We remember and we serve, and we will honor those we have lost, as together we teach future generations about so much more than the horror Osama bin Laden wants us to never forget. While we will always have those images of destruction and devastation in our minds, what better way to honor those that we lost than to take this day, turn it around, and teach our children about the spirit of service and sacrifice and of helping one another that so many of us felt in the aftermath of 9/11. To teach them about the strength and character of the American people that will always keep the United States of America strong. That is why I am so thankful that you are all here tonight to help make that happen. Thank you.